Bob here with LightGenius.com. In this week's video, we're going to cover the auto modes on your camera, when to use them, and why. A standard comment in a lot of my workshops is, there seems to be so much to remember. And that's very true if you're memorizing. But if you understand what happens when you change a setting and what it does, then it becomes natural flow from one setting to another. So that's the kind of goal of these videos, is to make you understand what's happening when you set a particular setting on your camera for a situation. Full automatic on your camera. That's automatic everything. Shutter speed, aperture, ISO, white balance. Everything is set automatically. All you have to do is choose the subject and compose the shot. That's very much like your point and shoot camera. If you're just moving into DSLR from a point and shoot, this would be a very good setting for you to start with, because it gives you the same operation as your point and shoot, but you have the advantages of a larger sensor, higher image quality, interchangeable lenses, and most important, a much faster response when you hit that shutter release button. Shutter priority, aperture priority, the program mode, and all the other specialty modes like sports, landscape, portrait, night portrait, auto depth of field. These are all also automatic settings, but they give you choices and leave just the final calculation for exposure to the camera. We'll cover the other auto modes in future videos, so this is a really good time for you to subscribe. Just click right here, and then you won't miss the upcoming weekly videos. Let's look at the advantages of the auto settings. Auto exposure works really well under ideal conditions. Auto white balance is also very effective, good part of the time, as is auto ISO if you've got lots of light. With all those automatic settings working quite well, it leaves you to concentrate on the subject and composing the shot and improving the artistic end of your photography. Also, there's no question that a lot of good shots would be missed even if you just took 30 seconds to set manual settings on the camera. So in automatic mode, it's much faster, of course, and you're prepared for those spur-of-the-moment shots. Now, as we all know, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So there are disadvantages to auto modes. One of the weaknesses of auto modes is that to date, they haven't learned to put a brain in a camera, so it treats all scenes the same. A second weakness is inconsistency. In these images, the subject and the light source remain constant. The only thing that changes is the background. With our brain, we know that we want the subject to be the same color regardless of the background color, while the camera's auto white balance tries to make every image, taking the total frame, 18% gray. To do so, it must consider the background color and making the color of the subject itself change with each background change. The camera just doesn't know which is the main subject. Here's another example. In these images, the main subject is obvious, but the camera uses the whole frame to calculate the exposure, and even a slight change in the camera's angle of view changes the camera's exposure calculations, even though the subject and the light falling on the subject remain constant. Again, the camera doesn't know which is the main subject. When we shoot in manual, the background color, brightness, the angle of view will have no effect on the exposure, and it will remain constant based on the subject. Why is it so important to have consistency and as close to perfect exposure and white balance in the camera, when in fact we have some great editing programs like Photoshop and Lightroom where we can make adjustments later? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is that every adjustment that's made on the image in an editing program, with the exception of a white balance adjustment in RAW, deteriorates the quality of your end image. A second reason is that those adjustments all take time. And if you take a wedding photographer, for example, that's working on 1,500 images, and he has to make adjustments to them all, he could spend hours and hours of time in post-processing. Why is the consistency part so important? In some programs like Lightroom, for example, an adjustment to white balance or exposure can be made in batches. If you have 50 images that have all been taken under the same lighting conditions and you've used a manual white balance setting, all of the white balance will be the same on those 50 images. If it needs adjustment, you can just group them and make that adjustment to all 50 images with one click of the mouse. So let's review what we just covered. When should you use automatic? Well, when you don't have the time to make manual adjustments, because it could make you miss a good shot, then auto is great. When I'm walking around with my camera and I don't know what my next shot is going to be, I normally have my camera set on shutter priority. Why shutter priority? We're going to cover that in the next video next week, so be sure and subscribe so you don't miss it. Auto works great when the conditions are ideal. And ideal conditions are generally when the background and the subject are lit the same, evenly. If you have consistent foreground and background, then your results are going to be consistent. If you have any questions, by all means, leave a comment below and I'll be happy to get back to you on it. If you've found this helpful and you've enjoyed this video, by all means, subscribe by clicking right here, and then you won't miss our weekly videos. You might also want to check out the videos that are already on our channel. Thanks for watching. See you next week.